Okay. All right.
And it was just one more change, they took independent tax.
Okay. Are we ready?
Angie?
Okay. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
I would like to call the Policy Committee to order. The first item on the agenda is the meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes as distributed?
No, ma'am.
If not, then we will declare the minutes accepted as presented. The next item on the agenda is policy updates from NCSBA with substantive changes. And I will call on Chris. Oh, one more business before we do that. Policy number 2302. I can't see it by this minute. Page 2. Of course it would be. There are some questions about where the updated policy, why the updated policy is not reflected in the notes. It says that it was not sent to NCSBA, but it has been back in September. So I think the best thing to do is just remove that policy from the agenda tonight because we don't have all the information that we need. And if we go ahead with it tonight, all we would be doing is just approving the legal reference. The major change on this, we don't have a clear understanding yet of what it's about. So I would suggest we just take policy 2302 off until next month.
Is there a way to do it contingent to or subject to submission, or is it just cleaner to do it, wait and do it in another?
I think it's cleaner, but I will defer to Chris.
Yeah, so
it takes a bit of time it would have to sit for 30 days and then we'd have to get it to the school board association. I think it would maybe prolong it if we approved it and then waited for it to get approved for final approval and then had the school board association do the changes. So I can get with Nancy tomorrow, actually, probably, and we can add it to the January agenda.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. So, with that, we will remove this for this month. We'll table it. Now, Chris?
So I do want to point everyone to the policy memo that was emailed, and it's also in the attachments. It's titled 112921 and then Nash County Public Schools on it. That has kind of the overview of the changes that we'll be talking through tonight. The first policy that we'll look at is policy 1310, 4002, parental involvement. And I have this policy pulled up here. There is a required change to this policy, and it is in section D. And if we scroll all the way through, it's actually D12 that the change has been made to. The memo had a typo in it. And it removes the word independent from number 12 and just says that students' access to the internet as described in technology responsible use policy is parental permission is required. And so we have the responsible use form that parents sign off on. It just removes that word. Are there any questions about that change?
Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move on to the next one. Policy 1720.
Okay, and this policy, so if you recall, a while ago, we had some new Title IX policies come through based on sexual harassment, non-discrimination policies, and there were 3 new policies that were put in place. And so we've got some changes that the School Board Association has recommended, and we are asking that the 3 Title IX policies that we have on the agenda tonight, this one and 2 additional ones that have some minor changes, that if it's okay, that we approve those and waive the 30 days because we have a CTE civil rights audit coming up in December and would like to have these policies updated and in place prior to that audit happening. And so in this policy, it adds the parenthetical text here or expands it on the basis of sex to include pregnancy, childbirth, sexual orientation, and gender identity. And that is based on some lawsuits, I believe, some legal authority that has come.
Yeah, that's
out for
correct.
those. And Lindsay, I believe if you would like to talk through,
Yeah.
we had made an adjustment to the policy, but there's some suggestions from Lindsay that I'd like her to kind of appraise us of.
Sure, absolutely. So, and I'm just pulling up everything, but the suggestions that are here, I think and this would be my recommendation is, I believe that the information here, the Section 504 coordinator, the ADA coordinator, the age discrimination coordinator, and the coordinator for other non-discrimination laws, I think that is coming from sort of our broader non-discrimination policy, which I believe is policy 1710. My recommendation would be that in your Title IX, in this policy, that you identify one Title IX coordinator. And so only have the Title IX coordinator in this identified in this policy. And the reason for that is, it's at least the new regulations make it pretty clear, and it's pretty important that we want to make sure that folks who need to identify that. Parents or students or anybody else need to be able to pretty clearly identify that. I would also say, if there's a more specific URL that we could put in the policy to identify the contact information for the Title IX coordinator, I might recommend doing that as well.
Yeah, and I did talk with Ms. Wallace, who I believe is on Zoom with us. Ms. Wallace, if you would like to speak to the URL on the website, and then what we talked through in terms of you being the point person for Title IX. I think something might be wrong with her microphone. So I will tell you what we talked about. So Ms. Wallace was working with her webmaster and her department to add a harassment, discrimination, and Title IX link to the HR website. And so if you go to the district website and go to departments and human resources, it will be under there. They were actually working on it today. And what they'll be doing is linking all of the Title IX policies as well as 1710 and the grievance policy as well that is applicable to those. And that is live on that website. And I will amend this to include the end part of that so that this policy will take them directly to that. We also talked about the fact that when these policies came out, Angie Miller was our Title IX coordinator, and that was really, it was a historical thing. The person in charge of athletics had historically been in charge of Title IX. When the laws had kind of expanded, there was some concern about it being more of an HR and maybe an exceptional children thing that needed to be overseen by other folks. And so Sheila is okay with us either doing one of two things, adding where it says the coordinator for other non-discrimination laws, including Title IX coordinator to that last kind of bullet point there, or just taking out the other mentions of 504, ADA, and age discrimination to just say the executive director of human resources. So either one, and Lindsay, will defer to you about which one you think would be best to do.
I mean, I think it would probably be cleanest to just have a reference to here's the Title IX coordinator, because I don't think you need the references for those other coordinators in this particular policy. You have them in another policy, and I don't think you need them here. And I think it might be confusing for folks who are trying to identify who the Title IX coordinator is.
Right. Okay. So we will make that adjustment right here.
Chris, can you hear me?
Oh, now we can. Yes.
Yeah,
If you'd like to
okay.
add anything, that'd be great.
So we have already updated it on the website. If it does include the policies without the changes, we depending on what is approved tonight, and I will be the Title IX coordinator for the district.
So I am going to go to that website then and take that link and put it right into the policy then. So we have it right down here, discrimination, harassment, and Title IX. Ooh, it's a long one. All right. Lindsay, do you have any other things to add? There were also changes to the legal references that I think precipitated that expansion of the parenthetical mention of sex.
That's the only thing I had to add. Thank you.
Okay. Before you go to the next one,
Mhm.
let's look at the other two
Okay.
that deal with the same issue, and we can take care of them together.
Sure. And Lindsay, I'll let you kind of talk through why this one stood out and whether we need to adjust the others as well. So this one is policy 1725, 40, 35, 72, 36, which is Title IX, sexual harassment, prohibited conduct, and reporting process. And this one had, and it is on, in the memo, actually, it is listed on page 4. And there was just a legal reference change to this policy. A lot of pages.
Yeah, I don't
Here.
think there's any other changes that need to be made because this is the only one that had those, the Title IX coordinator, the identification of the Title IX coordinator is policy 1720. So this one is fine with just the legal reference.
Okay.
And then 1726.
And again, 1726 is on page 5, and this was a legal reference change only. Now this one did detail out, I believe, the, and it was from a previous update that we had done, if I'm not mistaken. Nope, I am mistaken. It's 1710 that has it listed. So this is just legal references as well.
Legal reference.
Yep, that's fine. There's no, I don't think there's any other changes that need to be made to this one.
Okay. Before we go back to the other policies, committee members, since these 3 policies, we are asked if we would recommend approval, so that we waiver the 30-day wait. Do we have any questions? We'll take these 3 policies alone. Are there questions? All right, then
No.
is there a motion that we recommend approval to the full board for policy 1720 /4030/7235, policy 1725/4035/7236, and policy 1726/4036/7237 for approval
Ms.
and to waiver the 30-day wait.
Yeah, Ms. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the reference policies and waive the 30-day resting or 30-day waiver of the 30-day
Requirement.
requirement.
Their second,
Second.
thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we recommend to the full board approval of these 3 policies and waive the 30-day laying on the table. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 And aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Now we can go back to the regular list.
Okay, I believe that we're on 2125 /7315 confidential information. This reformatted the policy, actually added some subheadings to it, added a new section B to align with our student records policy that we have in existence. It added a new section C that requires that the superintendent establish and enforce protocols for the secure handling of electronic transmission of personally identifiable information of students and employees. And then it adds some references as well.
Are there questions on policy 2125?
Ma'am.
Okay. Next policy is 4050.
So policy 4050 is children of military families. And these are recommended changes as well. So the recommendation of the North Carolina State Council for Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children added a new section C to this policy. Here we go. A resolution of issues, and it contained, this also had some information from a previous update that we have already approved. So that was the cross references that are there. But this section C, resolution of issues, just aligns with our grievance procedure policy 1740 and 4010.
All right, in the notes,
Mhm.
it speaks to the last two sentences that are optional. Do we need to keep those two sentences
Yeah.
in?
So Lindsay, if you could kind of speak to that, I read them and didn't see it. What all it does is give the contact information for reporting grievances to DPI or the North Carolina Commissioner of the State Council for Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children. Right.
Yeah, so basically what it does is Section C generally points, provides them with a grievance under the board policies and in front of the board. Those last two sentences sort of point them to an alternative complaint process. So, adding the Section C, you definitely would want to have the, reference to the board's grievance process, but it's really up to you all whether you want to include that. It's just additional information for folks.
Well, it seems like it would make it easier if you could see in the policy, contact people
Mhm.
for your concern from my perspective. Lank or Sharonda? Any comments or questions on that?
I mean, the contact within the school system is in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is an additional contact that we could be providing for somebody, which we certainly could do upon receipt of the call or the letter or the notice internally, if you don't want to put that much information out there. Or if you think it's a good idea just to have it available, I guess it does not hurt.
I mean, it's not required, and so I think that that's really more about whether how much you really want to put in board policy as sort of a reference. I mean, this is something that could also be on the website. This could be something like Mr. Dunton said, could be provided to folks if they contact the district personnel. But because it is referenced to sort of an outside grievance process or an outside complaint process, it's mostly just sort of additional helpful information for parents.
If it makes it easier for the parent to identify who the person is that he needs to call. If it's in there, that makes it easier for the person, for whoever's trying to get the information. If it's not in there, then they'll have to call us and then we'll have to refer them to where they need to go. Is that not correct, Lindsay?
I mean, I think that's true, but I would say that I don't know that we necessarily, I mean, to the extent that we want it to make them easier for them to contact somebody for the board's internal grievance process, I don't know that we have that contact information in here. So the contact information in here has to do with sort of contacting this outside agency, but presumably it would be easier for them to know who to contact, but I don't know that we have that information with respect to the board's internal grievance process, if that's what the board is concerned about.
All right, then my question to the committee would be whether we want to leave those last two sentences in the policy or remove them.
I would say remove them just to kind of simplify things. And again, we can provide that information also. I guess I don't want it to be that we're endorsing or instructing them to call if that is not the normal process.
Sharonda?
Yes, I would agree. I guess it's kind of getting wordy, kind of getting a little bit more complicated than it has to be. I guess it seems as it's always good to provide more information, but in this case, it might be a bit much. So even if we can provide them for information, they can still, contact us. So I think removing it would be best.
Okay, then we will strike those last two sentences.
Okay.
Chris.
All right.
Policy 4700.
Okay. Policy 4700 is student records. And there were several really reorganizations, I guess, to this policy. Subsection H3D is where they start. So I will scroll through to that section. So in this, actually, this one wasn't mentioned in the minor editorial changes, I guess this one would be considered. So we had electronic email address or electronic mail addresses. They've just updated it to say email addresses. And then this section here is a section that was added to provide a requirement that provides secondary student school email addresses to military recruiters upon request unless a parent opts out as required by a new federal law. And that is a required adjustment that we make to this policy and is also addressed in the legal references.
Other questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. The next policy is 4720.
Yes, 4720 is surveys of students, and there were some extensive changes to this policy. Most of them strongly recommended, and it really aligned the policy with the directory information that we have in our student records policy. So revising the opening statement to require that the superintendent ensure all requirements of the protection of pupil rights are met, not just those pertaining to student surveys. So just in general, that we're protecting the rights of students. Reorganized section A, changed the name a bit, added a new section B to address surveys. Which is here. The parental consent is one that has come from our student record policy, I believe, also, just lining the two up. Updated section C to explain the statutory rules regarding the collection, disclosure, and use of personal student information for purposes of marketing or selling information. And then section D was updated and renamed information that was formerly on the parent involvement section previously. So kind of shifted things around in the policy.
Other questions? All right. Policy 5020.
Policy 5020, if you recall, had some temporary restrictions based on guidance from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. Those have been removed. Those temporary restrictions have been removed in the And I believe we talked about that in our last board meeting, that those were removed from the toolkit. And so the School Board Association recommendation is that we remove them from policy as well.
Are there questions on policy 5020? 5030.
I'm in.
So 5030 is another one that had some temporary adjustments to it based on recommendations from the Department of Health and Human Services about restricting access to our facilities. We had actually already removed that. I think that they had not caught up with our policy adjustments either. So that's one that we had removed in our last update. It also reorganized some of this policy, and these were recommended and optional changes, really just to clean it up and address some local changes that I think were made to the policy that the School Board Association felt like were redundant and were mentioned more than one time within the policy. So they weren't really major changes, just omitting some information because it was said elsewhere.
Are there questions?
No, ma'am.
Policy 5210.
Okay, policy 5210 is distribution and display of non-school materials. And the adjustments in this policy are required. They clarify the applicability of the policy when it's relevant, and updated some terminology that are in the body of the policy around gender.
Other questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, the next one and the last one in this section with substantive changes would be policy 9000.
Correct. And we have Shannon here. Shannon, do you want me just to talk through the memo, or would you like to come up and add further details to it? Okay. So if you recall, a while ago, I think it was probably over a year ago, we adjusted our contracts with the board policy to allow for some larger purchases that were routine in nature. Buses being one of them, and the contracts for facility through our facilities and maintenance department. And the change to this policy is just removing a sentence so that this policy about planning to address facility needs aligns with our contracts with the board policy. So removing the requirement that all professional contracts be approved by the board, so that the contracts with the board policy will dictate which contracts come to the board for approval.
Other questions? Then we go to the policies with minor changes, and that would be 2 of them, 3 of them.
3 of them, yes.
2300, that just corrects a typo.
It does.
And 2310,
Same thing, just corrects a typo in the second paragraph of section B.
except when I read these, I couldn't see what was corrected.
Let's pull that up and
But
take a
it wasn't highlighted, so I couldn't be sure what was corrected, but we'll move on. Policy 9020.
see from this far away. Struggling a little bit here. Facility design is policy 9320, and this one corrected a
No, it's
typo.
90, okay.
And I'm sorry, I did say 93. It's 9020.
You're
I
right.
apologize.
You got that.
It corrects a typo that is recommended and then contains information from a previous update that I don't believe that, which was to the references and the resources that are listed in the policy. I don't believe that those came to the board. I don't recall, Shannon, this one coming, so. And
Are there any comments or questions on policy 9020?
No, ma'am.
Sharonda?
No, ma'am.
Then we have policy 1720, policy, no,
we
we've
already,
done 1720, sorry about that. 1310, 2125, 4050, 4700, 4720, 5020, 5030, 5210, 9000, policy 2300, 2310, and policy 9020. Is there a motion that we recommend to the full board that we approve these policies as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we recommend to the full board approval of the policies that were just listed. Are there questions?
No, ma'am.
Are there comments?
No, ma'am.
Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 And aye. Motion carried. Is there anything else to claim our attention for this evening? If not, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are we ready to go into the next one?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sharp, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, colleagues. I'd like to call to order the ASOC Committee for the Nash County Public Schools. We have quite a few items on the agenda for discussion for tonight. But the first item on the agenda is basically, let me just make a roll call. Mr. Dunton,
Here.
Ms. Donovan,
Here.
Mr. Lamb,
Here.
and Sharonda Bullock.
Here.
So everyone's present. The first item on the agenda is the accepting of the minutes from the last meeting. I need a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Dunton, second by Ms. Who made the second?
Davis.
Davis. Any questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes carried. So we do have, the first item is gonna be for information only. And I'm gonna ask Ms. Joyce Garrett if she would come and share us the financial audit.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have completed or had our financial audit for 2021 completed. And Mr. Dale Smith from the auditing firm of Anderson, Smith and Hvac is here to present the audit for your information.
All right, good evening, board members. Hope all of you are doing well. Had a good Thanksgiving. I think each of you should have already received a copy of the financial statements, and hopefully you've had a chance to look over them. I know they're fairly lengthy, so I'll be going over the pages from the report that I think are of the most importance to you all in overseeing the finances of the school district. There were no new accounting or auditing standards that went into effect this year, so the statement should pretty much be laid out in the same exact format as they were in the previous year if you want to compare information over the 2-year period. The audit covers 2 primary areas. We perform an audit of the actual finances of the school system, and the financial section covers the first 58 pages of the report. And that section is followed by the compliance section of the audit, which covers pages 59 through 70. And for the financial section, we perform an audit of the actual finances of the district, which includes all of the amounts and disclosures that you see in those first 58 pages of the report. And in auditing the finances of the district, we perform a lot of random testing of payroll and general disbursement transactions, and perform a lot of confirmation, analytical, and other various procedures to ascertain ourselves that the financial statements are reasonably stated and free from any sort of material misstatements or errors. And any differences or unusual relationships that we note in our testing, we dig into those areas, talk to Ms. Jarrett and her department, and satisfy ourselves that the numbers in the report are reliable and can be relied upon. And on pages 1 and 2 of the report is the audit opinion letter on the financial section of the audit. And it is a clean, unmodified opinion, and that's exactly what the district wants to receive. And this does in fact mean that the statements we feel are reliable and free from any material misstatements or errors. And starting on page 59 of the report is the beginning of the compliance section of the statements. And there are 3 letters we issued that are included here that relate to the various detailed testing we have to perform on the internal controls of the district and the district's compliance with various state and federal laws and regulations related to all of the state and federal funding that flows through the district. And we were required to perform a good bit more testing this past year because of all of the federal COVID funding that the district received. And we're happy to report that all 3 of these letters are also clean, unmodified reports. And that this lets you know there were no findings, no question costs reflected in any of these letters. And I think this is the first time in 3 years that we haven't had any findings to report. So, you know, we were happy about that. And again, basically these letters let you know that we didn't note any improper use of grant funds. And from all the testing that we did, testing of general disbursements, testing of payroll transactions, it appears that the district's funds were expended in accordance with the budgets that were adopted and approved by the Board of Education. So these 4 letters combined represent the highest level of assurance that a school system can receive in its external audit. If you would, let's turn over to page 12 and we'll look at the district's fund balances of its governmental funds. And this page provides basically a snapshot of where the district stood as of June 30th. So it tells you all of the balances and fund balances as of that date. And we'll be focusing on the first column to begin with, which is your general fund. And if you look at the top, the general fund had cash and cash equivalents at year end of $7,191,758, which comprised almost all of the district's total assets, which were $7,862,279. And there in the middle, the district had liabilities of $2,179,021. And assets minus liabilities gives you your fund balance, next to last number in that first column, which was $5,691,358. And that amount, the ending fund balance represents an increase of about $1.5 million over the fund balance that was reported at June 30th, 2020. So it increased $1.5 million over the previous year. And due to COVID-19 and the students not being in the classroom much of the year, the district was able to generate some cost savings in some operational areas last year. And then in other operational areas where y'all saw costs increase, the district received all of that federal funding that we were talking about. So y'all were able to use that federal funding to help offset costs that increased for the district. Combination of these 2 factors are what led the district to be able to increase its fund balance by about $1.5 million last year. And most of the districts we've audited this year have seen their local fund balances increase significantly as well. So it's not uncommon for fund balance to go up this year. And the district's fund balance had gotten fairly low about 3 to 4 years back. And but it has increased steadily over the past few years and has increased to what we would now consider to be a good level for a district this size. I would point out that costs do seem to be rising in about all operational areas. I'm sure y'all know that. Health insurance rates, retirement rates, fuel, utilities, all of those seem to be going up very quickly. So, you know, we feel that building up your fund balance reserves right now is a very wise operational strategy. Because when that federal funding expires in about 3 or 4 years, y'all are going to be left, having to balance the budget without having that money to look at and rely on. So I think at that point, it's going to be nice to have some extra fund balance reserves. All right, and if you read across the fund balance line, your state public school fund and federal grants fund, as always, shows zero fund balance. Y'all spend those dollars in the year that you receive them. The restricted revenue fund had an ending fund balance of $3,752,094. And most of the revenues that flow through that fund are restricted for various grants and programs. But you do have some unrestricted revenues that flow through there, like indirect costs, sales tax refunds. So some of that fund balance is unrestricted and available if you needed it. The capital outlay fund had a fund balance of $275,713 at June 30th, and all of that is restricted for capital outlay purposes. And the individual schools fund had an ending fund balance of $1,125,020, and all of that is restricted for individual school activities. And that amount basically represents the ending cash balances of each individual school at year end. Each school's got its own bank account, and that's the combined balance of all of their bank accounts. So again, I think overall the district is in sound financial condition in these governmental funds as of year end. Did anyone have any questions on this page before we look at child nutrition? All right, let's turn over to page 58. Page 58 shows the revenues and expenditures of the school food service program for the year ended June 30th, 2021. And about 3/4 of the way down, the last line that has 3 columns to it says net change in fund balance. In the middle column, you can see that the program reported a loss for the year of $1,517,904. And in the previous year, the program reported a profit of about $513,000. So you had a year-over-year decline in profitability of about $2 million. And as would be expected with the remote learning environment, revenues decreased significantly. I think overall revenues were down about $4.1 million between food sales to students, supplemental sale items, and your USDA reimbursements. Management was able to partially offset the decrease in revenues with decreases in expenses of about $2 million, which was primarily in food costs and salaries and benefits, but still not enough to overcome the big drop in revenues. Your cash balances in the program were $2.2 million at year end, and that represented a decrease of $724,000 for the year. But I think the cash balances are still at a good level for a district this size for the child nutrition program. And obviously the program can't afford to continue having losses of $1.5 million a year. Otherwise you'd have to start subsidizing it from the general fund at some point. But I think hopefully with students back in school, you're going to see your revenues get back to a more normal level. And hopefully the program can at least get back to a break-even status this year or next year. But again, you've got plenty of cash to weather, another bad year if you had to.
Was there not CARES fund money that offset
There-
some of that drop in revenue?
And y'all used that in the previous year. So that it was around $900,000 that got spent in the 2020 year. And the federal, I think it was PRC 125, got spent for the benefit of the child nutrition program. So yeah, and saying that they had a $513,000 profit that year, if you factored in that 900,000, they really ended up with a loss last year had they not had that money. See, it's been tough on child nutrition programs with the children being at home. Any questions on this page? And we also perform a good bit of detailed testing on the receipts and disbursements at the individual schools. And there were no significant issues noted at the schools. We always note minor things. We report anything and everything that we find. If a teacher turns in money late, we write it down, we report it to Ms. Jarrett. So we always send her a detailed listing of everything that we find at the schools. But none of those items were deemed to be of a significant nature. She uses those, she shares them with the principals and the bookkeepers for training purposes. But, again, if there was anything significant, we would report those to y'all. And we have done that in the past if we run
Booster
across.
club and stuff like that, it goes through the individual school. Y'all don't do a lot with the booster club.
And well, the booster clubs are their own organization. Yeah. So they're not involved, with the school's records at all. So, yeah. We don't look at those.
That would have to be done internally then.
It would. Yep. But overall, it appears the bookkeepers are doing a good job. We also issued a couple of other separate letters that you should have received. One is a 2-page letter that summarizes a couple of operational areas pertaining to purchasing and budgeting, where we felt controls and procedures could be improved some. And we've discussed those areas at length with management. And it's our understanding from talking to them that improvements have been made in processes and procedures to address those items. And the 3-page letter that you received is what we call a required communications letter. And it discusses that there were no difficulties or disagreements encountered in dealing with management. There were no uncorrected misstatements noted during the audit. So anything significant has been adjusted for in the financial statements. And it also lets you know there were no significant reportable issues noted during the audit. So this letter is basically boilerplate and is considered a clean report. I think overall, we were very happy with what we saw from an audit standpoint. I think you all are doing a great job of overseeing the budgets, making sure the district doesn't spend more money than what it has, which is always good to see. And I think finance department's doing a good job in overseeing the finances. Again, we didn't run across any monies being spent in ways they shouldn't be. Anyone have any questions? Was there anything I didn't go over that you wanted me to touch on?
I like
So, Miss-
to commend our finance department. I think Ms. Jarrett has done an excellent job on listening and learning and getting along with the job that she's involved with, and her entire department needs our thanks.
Yeah, I think Ms. Jarrett can tell you, North Carolina school system finance is very different than anything that you would expect coming in not knowing. It's a different animal. It really is.
So Dale,
Yes,
can you hear me okay?
I can.
So first of all, let me say thank you for you and your team for putting forth the effort. I'd like to echo what Mr. Lamb had said. Is there anything that you see that would bring highlights to you that will be different from other districts that you've also audited? Are we in line? Do we look above par, at par, some areas that we may want to address?
I think about the only area that y'all had gotten a little bit weak in, and we had talked about that, was your fund balance had gotten a little bit low. And again, y'all have built that up over the past 3 years. You've gotten it to where I think it's at like 24% of expenditures, and that's basically the metric that's looked at in government finance. And it had gotten down, I think, to around 6% at one point. Your unassigned fund balance had gotten at that level, but now it's at 24. So I would say that that's the the one thing that was a problem. Y'all have improved on that. Child nutrition, y'all probably need to keep an eye on that. Those losses in that program. Again, if you didn't have that 900,000, you would have had a loss in the previous year. So need to look at that. But again, you're kind of limited with COVID the past 2 years. So I don't think that's not giving you a true picture of how the program was doing, given that you had COVID.
So are other districts similar to that when it comes to child nutrition?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are there other districts in that same red or gray, yellow area when it comes to child nutrition?
We've got some that are in the red, and we've got some that are doing that have done actually pretty well. They have been serving more meals. They're getting them home to the students. So that might be an area you'd want to look at if,
Yes,
if you end up sending the students home again, is what were some of those districts doing to get their revenues up during this period?
And so I think that's what we will maybe have the superintendent to evaluate with the staff, just looking at districts. So if you could share with maybe Ms. Jarrett who those districts might be, and maybe we could do some comparison.
Yeah, I certainly can.
Thank you.
And there's one page I'd like board members to look at that I really started looking at, page 57, where it says school revenues.
Right.
Board members always hear the excuse from individual schools that we don't have money to do this, we don't have money to do that. This shows you that schools do have some money. Most of the time, these funds come from student pictures, yearbook, etc.
Yep.
And this is money schools can spend for their students. Is that's
That's
correct?
exactly what it is.
So, this old story that we don't have enough money to do this and do that, we got a clear picture in front of us what each individual school does have.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Any other question or discussion for Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Of course, this is for information purpose only. If there are no other further questions, we say thank you, Mr. Smith, for you and your firm for an outstanding job and working with Mrs. Jarrett and her team. We're really excited about what you guys have done as a team and collaborating together. So thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see y'all.
All right, so team, the next thing is Shannon Davis, as he come forth, he's got roughly about 10 items that he needs to report on. They're all action items that's dealing with the facilities. So I'm going to ask, as he goes through the facilities, that we will, if you have any questions at the end of each facility, you can address that or ask that then. And at the conclusion of Mr. Davis, when he's done, we'll have a motion to accept all 10 items that's on the agenda. All right, Shannon, it's on you.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First item up is Nashville Elementary School. It's the boiler and chiller replacement. A pre-bid meeting was conducted in October for the replacement of the boiler and chiller at Nashville Elementary. SPC Mechanical and All Red Mechanical submitted bids. SPC submitted the low bid of $236,103 as shown on the attached big tab. The project will be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. The superintendent recommends the project be approved to SPC Mechanical in the amount of $236,103. Any questions? Next item, Winston Avenue Elementary chiller replacement. Pre-bid was also conducted in October for the replacement of 2 chillers at Winston Avenue. SE&M Contractors, SPC Mechanical, All Red Mechanical, and Jeff Hargett Mechanical submitted bids. Jeff Hargett Mechanical submitted a low bid of $178,300 as shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Jeff Hargett Mechanical in the amount of $178,300. Questions? Next item is Edwards Middle School HVAC replacement. Pre-bid was conducted in October at Edwards Middle School for the replacement of HVAC equipment in the 500, 700, 800, 900, and administrative wings of the campus. Alfred Mechanical, SPC Mechanical, and Carolina Commercial Systems submitted bids. Alfred Mechanical submitted the low bid of $1,796,000 as shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. The superintendent recommends the project be approved to Alfred Mechanical in the amount of $1,796,000. Questions?
No, sir.
Next item, Edwards Middle School window replacement. A pre-bid meeting was also conducted in October for the replacement of windows at Edwards Middle School. Carolina Classic Windows and Glass and Jim's Custom Windows Incorporated, L.A. Downey and Son, and Calvin Davenport Incorporated submitted bids. Carolina Classic Window and Glass submitted a low bid of $1,476,090, as shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Carolina Classic Window and Glass in the amount of $1,476,090. Questions? Next item, Bailey Elementary chiller replacement. Pre-bid meeting was conducted at Bailey Elementary in October for the replacement of 2 chillers, SPC Mechanical, Jeff Hargett Mechanical, All Red Mechanical, Carolina Commercial Systems of North Carolina, and Alford Mechanical submitted bids. All Red Mechanical submitted a low bid of $175,400, as shown on the attached bid document. This project will be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to All Red Mechanical, the amount of $175,400. Questions? Southern Nash Middle School. A pre-bid was conducted in October at Southern Nash Middle School for the replacement of HVAC equipment in the 200 wing. Alford Mechanical, SPC Mechanical, and Carolina Commercial Systems submitted bids. Alford Mechanical submitted the low bid of $334,000, as shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Alford Mechanical, the amount of $334,000. Questions? Cooper's Elementary pre-K window replacement. Pre-bid meeting was conducted in October for the window replacement at the pre-K building at Cooper's Elementary School. Carolina Classic Window and Glass, L.A. Downey and Son, and Calvin Davenport submitted bids. Carolina Classic Window and Glass submitted a low bid of $180,849, as shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Carolina Classic Window and Glass, the amount of $180,849. Questions? Next item, Nash Central High School chiller replacement. Pre-bid meeting was conducted in October to replace chiller at Nash Central High School. Alford Mechanical, SPC Mechanical, All Red Mechanical, and Jeff Hargett Mechanical submitted bids. Jeff Hargett Mechanical submitted the low bid of $197,485, as shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Jeff Hargett Mechanical, the amount of $197,485. Questions? Next item, Northern Nash High School replaced 2 HVAC units. A pre-bid meeting was conducted in October for the replacement of 2 HVAC units at Northern Nash High School. Alford Mechanical, SPC, and Pemberton submitted bids. Pemberton submitted a low bid of $126,800, shown on the attached bid document. This project will be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Pemberton Incorporated in the amount of $126,800. Questions? And last, Spring Hope Elementary window replacement in the auditorium and 4 classrooms. Pre-bid meeting was conducted in October for replacement in the auditorium, window replacement in the auditorium and 4 classrooms at Spring Hope Elementary. Carolina Classic Window and Glass, Jim's Custom Windows Incorporated, L.A. Downey and Son Incorporated, Calvin Davenport submitted bids. Carolina Classic Window and Glass submitted a low bid of $169,536, as shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Carolina Classic Window and Glass in the amount of $169,536. That's the last item.
Any questions for Mr. Davis?
Shannon, real quick. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So all of the funding is pretty much for all the facilities been ESSER funded, right?
That is correct.
Awesome. That's all I want to bring. Any other questions for Mr. Davis?
Just real quick, Mr. Davis, I know some of this is out of our control, but things like windows, I mean, I know are 6, 8, 12, 9 months out. I mean, is there any concern about pricing, delivery? And again, I know we don't necessarily control any of that, but what is realistic?
We do not. What we're seeing now, I think I've brought before the board, Mulby, Hubbard, and Williford. We will start installation of Williford in late January. We'll start Hubbard sometime in March. We're here in 5 to 6 months, which is one reason we're really pushing the windows up front, the stimulus funds. I think we got a 3-year window. We're trying to push all the windows up front in case we have lead times. We're making sure we get everything invoiced out before we hit the deadline. So.
Good deal.
Any other questions? There's no questions. I need a motion to accept the 10 items that Mr. Davis has presented to this committee.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for a recommendation for approval to the board of the slate of proposed improvements to the facilities within the school district.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Dunton, second by Ms. Davis. Any other further questions or discussions? Hearing none, I'm going to call a roll call for vote. Mr. Dunton,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Lamb,
Yes.
Ms. Bullock,
Yes.
and Mr. Sharp, yes. Mr. Davis, thank you so very much, and for your team for an outstanding job that you guys, as always, that you do. So thank you, and just convey that information to your team.
Sure will. Thank you.
Is there anything else that would hold the ASO committee? Any other questions or discussions? Hearing none, I'd like to officially adjourn the ASO committee.
So moved. Washington?
All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Education Student Support Services and Operations Committee meeting to order. We'll start with, let me go ahead and do a roll call with the meeting members.
Board Member E. Bullock,
Yep.
Board Member D. Edwards, Board Member R. Jenkins,
Here.
myself, and Board Member D. Chavis.
Yes.
A quorum has been established. Okay, so I'll first entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our September 9th meeting.
So move. A second.
Okay, the motion was made by Board Member D. Chavis and seconded by Board Member E. Bullock. Next item is for information only. It is the CIS re-engagement specialist position overview by Mr. Farrell.
I'm going to ask Ms. Dorothy Hinton if she will come up before she gets started with her presentation. And Ms. Hinton, you can come right up to this podium here. Thank you for being here this evening. For those of you who do not know Mrs. Hinton, most of you probably do. She is the Executive Director of CIS of Rocky Mount.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everyone? Well, I hope that you had a great Thanksgiving too. It's great to be here. Thank you so much. I just want to take a few minutes to share with you, Mr. Farrell and I have regular check-ins to talk about the progress of CIS Rocky Mount. And so I want to just take a few minutes to share with you about our re-engagement positions that are working in the high schools this year. And so if you could advance it to the next slide, I'd appreciate it. Earlier this year, CIS Rocky Mount, along with other affiliates across the nation, had an opportunity from our national office to submit proposals to add re-engagement positions, to apply for re-engagement positions in the high schools. And in conjunction with our state office, CIS Rocky Mount applied for 5 positions. But this just gives you an overview, this slide does, that talks about what the grant was involved, and it was to hire, employ, and train re-engagement coordinators for 1 year. And so it would be effective July 1 through June 30th, 2022. And there was a possibility to receive $70,000 per re-engagement coordinator that was going to be awarded. The expectations for the role, you can advance that, please. Thank you so much, was that the re-engagement coordinators would work with school administrators, the student support specialists. That was a key piece of applying for funding is that the national office would award funding for re-engagement coordinators in schools that already had existing CIS programs. So they would work with the administrators, the school support specialists, the deans of students, and other staff to identify 20 to 30 students who were disengaged in the school setting. And disengaged meaning dropout, students who had dropped out or students who had not been present during the COVID time. So those are students who were being considered, and all students who are under the age of 18 had to be consented by parents. Students who are 18 or older can provide their own consent. Our re-engagement coordinators, Rocky Mount went to work to find our re-engagement coordinators when we were awarded the funding, but the re-engagement coordinators would go through 6 or 7 or 8 trainings that were offered by our national office to get them prepped to do the work, to get the students back into the school. And so that was everything from adverse childhood experiences to youth mental health, and then also doing motivational interviewing and trauma-informed care. And they would also be required to use a data management system, which we use. It's SysDem 2.0, to track all of their data. They would develop a plan to support the students in graduating from high school or getting their equivalency. And then they would also work with the students to make post-secondary plans, whether that's work or military or going into a 2 or 4 year college or trade. And they would also use a re-engagement survey for all of the students that have been identified. So move forward to our current status. Rocky Mount applied for 5 re-engagement coordinators, and with the support of our state office, we were awarded 3 re-engagement coordinators. The state office was awarded 5 total. 3 are for Rocky Mount. The other 2 are serving in roles in Northeast. So one is at Weldon High School, the other one's in Granville County. But we have 3 re-engagement coordinators that are supporting Nash County Public Schools. And so we have a person that's at Nash Central High and Northern, a shared role. Rocky Mount High and Tar River Academy, also a shared role. And then an individual at Southern Nash High, and that's based on the logistics of travel and finding the students and all of that. Just sharing a few of the outcomes with you thus far. All of the re-engagement coordinators have received lists from the dropout list and also the no-show list. So they have really gotten into the schools and gotten engaged with the faculty and staff to come up with a list of students who have been missing from education. And so thus far, here are some of the results. And I will tell you that one of the key drivers for us right now is having folks in the roles that are familiar with the area and with the work. And I think we have 3 re-engagement coordinators who are quite familiar with the area and are able to do the work to engage the students. The results are slow, but the results are coming. And so I'm excited about the work that they've done thus far. It is a 1-year commitment. That was what the national office committed to us, is just 1 year of funding. We are looking through our state office to find other ways to keep folks in the roles and to continue to get the students back into the schools that are missing. Initially, as I mentioned, there was a $70,000 commitment. We ended up getting about $63,000 to support each of the roles. Any questions or comments?
Ms. Hinton, is it safe to say that when the re-engagement specialists find that there are students who are having issues in terms of attending school, or they go missing, who were not initially on their list, that they are working with the school social workers, counselors, administrators to try to re-engage those students as well?
Absolutely. And so what we're finding, thank you for that, Mr. Farrell. What we are finding as well, some of the students who are considered a dropout are having, it's tough to get those students to get refocused and to want to get back into school. There are some challenges with that. There are some real challenges. And if the students are of age, if they're of legal age, there is not a lot of support coming from the parent to want to push students back into the schools also, so that they can continue to, create a successful pathway. And what our re-engagement coordinators are doing as well, are engaging with social workers and with counselors to assist with finding those other students that may have not shown up in the current school year. So we've had to shift that. That initial idea of the disengaged student came down from our national office, but we are having to change some of the ways that we are providing that support. But in all, what we're doing is looking to get kids back into the high schools. That's the work that our re-engagement coordinators are doing. That's our commitment.
Question.
Yes.
Thank you for that information. This is Mr. Sharp. As I look at your current status and I'm looking at the outcome, I think it's phenomenal, but I just got a quick question. You're banning 100% from the Rocky Mount TRA students. You contacted 19 as though all 19 students re-enrolled.
Yes, sir.
What do you consider? And then I'm looking at the other two, and I look at the re-enrollment rates is relatively low. What do you attribute that to?
So thank you for that question, Mr. Sharp. And I mentioned that it was key for us to have folks in the roles who know the area. And I have to say that re-engagement coordinator is a Rocky Mount High School graduate and has resided in this area pretty much for his entire adult life, except when he traveled out of the country for a little while. And so a lot of the students at Rocky Mount High School and Tar River Academy, that re-engagement coordinator is familiar with the student, the family, has some connection to those students that are missing, and is going endlessly committed, right? And just tireless effort in finding the students, and it's just able to connect. He has that knack to be able to connect with those students and to help them understand the importance of getting a high school diploma or the equivalency and moving on beyond to be successful.
That's awesome. Part two of my question.
I don't want to call any names, but I just have to tell you, it's Jolly Manning. And so for those of you who know Jolly Manning, you know that his work ethic is just phenomenal. But he's in that role that he's familiar with. He's quite familiar with not only the students, but he's also familiar with their backgrounds and the community. And that makes a difference.
Part two of my question.
Yes.
All right, so that's great. So if I look at these three categories, are they broken out by grade levels as far as how the attempts at what grade they were, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th? Did you break that out at all?
I don't have that information currently, but I can get that information. Our electronic tracking system has been, the national office was behind the time with that. And so they have just updated our data management system so that our re-engagement coordinators are able to provide the information and then access the system and be able to include that information. And so I can get that information back to this committee, absolutely.
I think that would be great information, especially for if you're re-engaging freshmen or sophomores or seniors. So you just know. Thank you.
Absolutely. Just a few other updates for you for our current CIS programming. We are in 9 sites and 1 elementary school, 3 middle, and 5 high schools. Our goal is to case manage 40 students at each of the sites and provide the traditional CIS model, work with those students of supporting them in attendance, behavior, coursework, parental engagement, and social emotional learning. We are currently at 319 is where we are. We're a little bit behind in meeting our enrollment goal, but there are a couple of sites that we've had a vacancy in the CIS support specialist role. So we're working to get all of that, get someone in those roles. Our tier 1 goal, so those are our school-wide goals for our students, to provide some of those supports whole school, whether that's bringing in a motivational speaker or having a career fair or something of that nature. And so each of our support specialists has a goal of 4 in the course of a year. And thus far, we have successfully facilitated 10 of those tier 1 goals. And then regarding our tier 2 and our tier 3 goals and supports, for the year, that's over 4,050 that we look to provide. And actual to date, we're over 1,000 for providing supports to the students that are being case managed. And then the last slide is just a few of the, or some of the interventions and the supports that we are providing. Our support specialists are, as you know, are in the schools during the day, and we are using Avid. Some of the Avid strategies. Zones of regulation focuses on behavior. Project Connect is a smoking cessation, but also a resiliency program. And they offer a lot of different strategies that our support specialists use to work with students, particularly in the high schools. Most of the things that they offer are high school age appropriate. There are some things that middle school students can benefit from as well. We use the developmental relations framework, which was created by the Search Institute and adopted for CIS. Check and Connect is another intervention that we use with our students that are high intensity, and that's weekly check-in with those students. Sanford Harmony is a social emotional learning tool. We're doing tutoring. Our CCAP is our career and college access program. And so that's been a part of our programming in Rocky Mount for a long time, where we are looking to provide those opportunities for our students to help them think about a career and or providing some exposure for the students for careers. And we're doing a lot of that now virtually. And then we are still doing field trips for our students. Questions, comments?
No, I just want to say thank you, Ms. Hinton. We know that the work that Community in Schools does for our school district is not easy work, but we certainly appreciate everything that you and your team do for our school district.
Absolutely. We enjoy it, and we have folks that are dedicated and committed. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. That item is for information only. We have one item for approval, and that is the school safety plans. Mr. Farrell?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mrs. Hinton. So for our school safety plans, good evening, everyone. First of all, please forgive me. Our school safety plans, our main point is present the district school safety plans process for the 2021-2022 school year. Want to outline the steps for approval of the school safety plans by Emergency Management System Representative Lewis Smith, and share a timeline for due dates of school safety plan, lockdown drill, tabletop activities, testing of red emergency buttons, and fire drills. Fiscal implications, there are none. Strategic priority is strategic priority 5, efficient and effective operations across all district departments. And the recommendation for the actions in this step is that the superintendent recommend this item be approved as presented. Once I present it, maybe a little bit ahead of myself.
I'm fine.
You can go to the next slide, Ms. McKee. Thank you. So many of you may be familiar that several years ago now, the North Carolina Emergency Management System created the School Risk Management Portal as a repository for critical emergency planning data for each school in North Carolina. And as it was required that all school districts start to participate in that process, many did not. And to this day, many still do not have their school system plans in this portal. We were fortunate enough that we were able to get started in this portal. And for the past, I know, 6 or 7 years, have had our school safety plans uploaded into this portal. So the first year, each school created their base emergency plan for their particular individual school. And from that point on, emergency management, Lewis Smith in particular, was able to go in, look at the school emergency plan, give the schools feedback on what they needed to do for the upcoming year, and those changes would be made. There are 2 schools in our system that do not have their school emergency plans in this portal. They are the Early College and City High. Mr. Smith last year went to the State Department contacted the State Department concerning having plans put in place for those schools in the portal. That has not yet been done. And one of the things is it's not just Nash County, but there are no early colleges across the state that have their plans in this system. So we are hoping that we'll be one of the first to have our early college and innovative high school like City High with their plans in this portal. You've heard me mention Lewis Smith, named several times. He's the Deputy Fire Marshal for Nash County Emergency Services. And he is the individual who is responsible for reviewing the school safety plans for Nash County public schools. Mr. Smith gives the confirmation that a school's plan is approved for publishing. If a school published their plan without his approval, they have to go back, have to submit it for review for him. Once he's able to review it and have given the proper feedback, then he lets them know when their plan is ready to be published and approved for publishing. And can you go back, Mr. Thank you, sir. So there's a document in there, Mr. McQueen. It's called I think it's the update. Yeah. I'm sorry to make you go out of this, but I just kind of want them to see how he provides the feedback. Assembly. Yes. So what Mr. Smith does throughout the course of the year is when the schools submit their plan for review, he will go in, he will review their plan. If there are changes that need to be made, he will provide them with feedback in the plan. The school then goes in, make those changes, submit it back again for review. Sometimes he finds that there are other things that he did not see the first time, or the schools may not have completed the task as required. So he'll send it back to them to make sure that they've completed it. Once it is completed, he then sends an email to me and to the school saying that your plan has been reviewed and approved for publishing. I follow up an email with that same email to the school to make sure that they've received it, and then they go in and they publish their plan. Once he's given them the approval for publishing their plan, you'll go up, Mr. McQueen, just right, thank you. you'll see over there where it says plan to publish, and he keeps track of the date that the school published their plan. You can go back to the presentation. Thank you, sir. So once Mr. Smith has given, I'll jump ahead of myself. Oh, for the early college and city high, they submit their school safety plans. There's a template that we used to use back before the emergency portal. They submit their plans on this template. They put it on a USB drive, just like the other schools, and Mr. Smith approves that plan, even though it's not in the risk portal management site. So again, early on, you heard me say they're responsible for going in, updating the plan with names, evacuation sites. If something of that nature should change in their plan, they're responsible for making sure that it is reflected in the plan. They review all procedures with their staff, all specific incident responses, strike team responsibilities, evacuation, and reunification plans. All of that is listed in their emergency plans. Once the plan has been approved for publishing, they publish the plan, they go in and they download the plan as a PDF to a USB drive, and then they send that USB drive to Ms. Harvey. And Mr. McQueen, you can, I think I saw you there. Thank you, sir. So this is the school, North Carolina School Risk Management site. This is where schools go. When schools go in, of course, they see a very different page than what you're seeing here. But because I have district level access, when I go in, I see this. And excuse me, Mr. Jenkins, for standing over you. But this is the PDF that I was speaking of that the schools can download to their USB drive. This over here signifies that their plan has been published and locked. So I cannot go into it. Mr. Smith can go into it, I believe, because of the rights that he has at the state level. And of course, the school can go into it. What they have to do is unlock their plan, and then they can actually go into the plan portal to make any changes that they need to make. At the beginning of the school year, there's an active shooter video that has been provided to us by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's Safety Division for that all schools have to show. All of our schools show that video on their very first day back with their staffs. Lockdown drills, we have 3 practice drills school year. We've tried to spread them out so that they are covered throughout the course of the year. And what you will see is that I've tried to go no longer than 2 months without having some sort of drill in place. So they may be doing a lockdown drill this month that is due, and then within the next month and a half, a tabletop activity may be due. So you can see here, the first drill was due September 24th. Second drill is due on January 28th, and then the third drill is due on May 6th. And on that first or second drill, each school has to test their red emergency button. And that red emergency button will be tested along with law enforcement. So in the first or second drill, they must work with law enforcement to do their school lockdown drill, because law enforcement provides feedback to them about the things that they're doing well, things that they need to improve. And the critical aspect is to ensure us that that red button is working. Because what will happen in the event that there was a school shooting, if that red emergency button is pushed, then every law enforcement agency within this region area, emergency management, all will descend upon that school. Because what that red emergency button signifies is that there is either a school shooting or something that is happening of a very violent nature at that school that's requesting law enforcement. So when we're doing our drills, the officer has to call the 911 call center to let them know, we're getting ready to test this button. You're going to get a call. It's not a live situation. In our drills, we have told our principals, assistant principals, first they try to reach out to me. If they can't get me, then try Miss Harvey. If they can't get Miss Harvey, then the main office. And the reason why we have them do this right before the drill is because we want them to be in the mindset that if something happens, that once they get their school locked down and people safe, that they're reaching out to make contact with central office, because then we have a whole plan that we have to put in place at this level. Tabletop activities, you hear me mention, those are 2 of those must be completed each year. And the tabletop activities are safety scenarios that could possibly happen, in which faculty and staff are supposed to give the correct procedures to mitigate a safety situation. And our first tabletop was due on November 19th, and the second one is due on March 3rd. And all of these are in alignment with general statute, state's general statute, excuse me. Fire drill, the first one must be done within the first 10 days of school. Subsequent ones, if I can speak, should be done monthly, and reports completed and submitted to Mr. Davis. Any questions for me?
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Farrell. If there are no other questions, at this time, I entertain a motion to approve the school safety plans as presented to recommend to the full board for approval.
Second.
The motion was moved by Board Member E. Bullock and seconded by Board Member Chambers. I do a roll call vote for the record. Board Member E. Bullock. Board Member D. Edwards. Board Member R. Jenkins.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm a yes, and Board Member D. Chambers.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. If there
Make a comment. On the basic school task force prior to the pandemic, I would like to commend you on the fact that Nash right now, this is what we were in.
Yes, ma'am.
Public schools was well thought of for their program, particularly for their active shooter program. So that's something for us to be really proud of at the state level, with all officers and policemen and those kinds of people. And that's Rockingham was being talked about.
Yes, ma'am. And we hope to get back to doing some more of those drills in the summertime. Hopefully COVID will allow us to manage that for this upcoming summer.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
That was good.
If there's no further business to come before the Student Support Services and Operations Committee, I declare the meeting adjourned.
Thank you. This time I'd like to call the Academic Services and Accountability Committee to order. I will entertain a motion to, first of all, excuse me, let's do a roll call. Ms. Washington.
Here.
Mr. Silver. Mr. Bizzett.
Here.
Mr. S. Bullock.
Here.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Washington, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. S. Bullock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. At this time, Rethink Education, District Partnership, information only, Mr. Fowler.
Good evening, Chairman Lamb, Mr. Farrow, and board members. Tonight, I just want to give you a brief overview of the partnership that we've started with Rethink Education. The Rethink Education Partnership is a Department of Public Instruction initiative funded by a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. Nash County Public Schools has partnered with Rethink Education to develop a customized plan that will meet the needs of teachers in our district and positively impact student learning. Strategic priorities that are focused through this are priority 1, increase grade level proficiency across all grades and subjects. Priority 2, increase the number of students that, the number of schools that exceed growth. And strategic priority 4, equitably staff and build capacity across all schools. In our initial meeting, we decided the focus of our work together with the Rethink Education partnership would be curating videos of our teachers delivering quality standards-based instruction following our district's instructional framework and other instructional resources. Videos and resources will include all subject and grade level standards, as well as evidence-based engagement strategies. The videos and resources will be housed in an online platform that will be searchable by standard, grade level, subject, and other criteria that'll be determined, other criteria to be determined as the work continues. In our most recent meeting, we discussed 2 focus groups that will be used throughout the course of our 2-year partnership. The first group will include district content specialists, MTSS facilitators, and school level instructional coaches. This group will identify the teachers whose instruction will be videoed, as well as the strategies that will be identified as best practices. The initial meeting for this first group is set for December the 6th. The second focus groups will consist of teachers, mentors, and principals who will give guidance on the structure of the online format to ensure it's easy to navigate that for anybody who visits the site. And the initial meetings for these groups will take place after the semester break. The instructional technology team will be responsible for the majority of the videoing and production in collaboration with public information and technology. So we have 4 kind of main long-term goals in this project. I want to obviously support the teachers who are going to visit the site on their own. We're going to provide a resource for principals to use if they see teachers during their observations, if there are things in their PDPs that they feel like are areas of need. We hope this will be a resource that they can point those teachers to as well. Provide resources for our coaches and MTSS facilitators in the building to use during PLC discussions so they can show them what good instruction looks like at each given subject or grade level. And lastly, as we go through this project over the course of the 2 years, we're going to create a process that will continue so we can create and curate videos and resources even after the grant project is finished. Our projected timeline for the online platform to be ready for teachers to use will be sometime between March and May of 2023. And then we'll also make a presentation to the board during that time so you can see what we're doing, and then we'll make some continued updates, maybe every 6 months or so, kind of show you what the project is, how we're doing. And again, this is just presented for information only. Any questions?
Any questions from Mr. Powell?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
This time, no more questions. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Washington. Second. By Ms. Chavis.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed likewise. Motion to adjourn is passed. Next meeting, December 6th.